Okay, welcome to part 2 of Adventures with a Sieg CNC milling machine. What we're going to do here is we're going to engrave a short piece of text. Within the Mark III program, there exist several features they call wizards. These are basically program shortcuts by which you can do or perform simple operations, engraving text, say, or bolt patterns, or simple pocketing. So what we've got here is we're going to engrave a gentleman's name. If you haven't encountered his name before, incidentally Google him, he's a very interesting chap. Now what we've got on this window here is various little parameters I've had to set in. First of all, he says, trying to find something to point with. First of all, we have the height here. That's how high the letters are to be engraved. The depth, how far into the material the machine's to cut them. The rapid height, that is when it finishes cutting one letter and traverses across to cut the next, how far above the work does it raise the cutter so that it doesn't leave a scratch mark in the surface of the work. So that's the rapid height. Separation, the gap between the letters. The orientation, did you want it horizontally, vertically, and if horizontally, which way? Do you want it in mirror text? The software is capable of engraving in mirror as well. And then finally on this side we've got the tool parameters, what tool number it is, the feed rate and the spindle speed, okay? And then we've also typed in the text. And then finally, last but no means least, we've specified what units we want to work in, which in this case is metric, okay? So at this point we then go to that button on the screen there marked right and click that, okay? And it thinks about it, and then it takes you back to the standard machine control screen, okay? It's already produced your tool path, as you'll see, top right, and so at this point we're ready to go, okay? So we check everything's where it should be. We've got the speed set, we've got the tool set, at which point we then press the button here marked cycle start, okay? Click. And then we start work over here on the machine, okay? Now, apologies for the slightly lousy lighting. I'll see if I can do something about that, he says confidently. Yes, there we go, that's better. Now, what we've got here, we're engraving a piece of metal, it's brass to be precise, and the way we're holding it here, it's a homemade solution I came up with. It's basically, the brass is held in that piece of aluminium, which in turn is held down in the vice set on a parallel. The piece of aluminium is basically a billet that I've first of all machined the raised edge you'll see onto the right along it, and then I've secondly produced a T-slot. Now sat in that T-slot are two of these, it says trying to find a decent light, these clamps here. They're called Mighty Bite clamps. They're produced by a company in the US and they're very good. The way they work, first of all, you'll see there's a grub screw at the top end of that T-slot, T-nut. That clamps the clamp into the T-slot. Secondly, this screw here, which is sat in the hexagon, that's got an eccentric head. So as you tighten that down, it pushes the hexagon to one side. And so the one on the left is basically serving as an anchor. The one on the right, now that's pushing it first of all across, but it's also pushing it up into that raised lip, okay? And as you can see, we're busily chuntering away, engraving like nobody's business. The cutter I'm using here, it's the good old faithful centre drill. I have some proper engraving cutters on order. They're on order from Arc Eurotrade. The company I bought the milling machine from, and a company I cannot recommend highly enough. They're excellent to deal with, okay? And as we can see, it's just engraving the N. And there we are, ladies and gentlemen. So, if we just go back to the computer screen for a moment, the first thing I'm going to do is just get that cutter out of the way. So we'll just do a rapid feed. And as you can see, the head rises rapidly out of the way, okay? And then we take our trusty Allen key, insert it into the clamp like so, twist, release, and finally, he says, trying to juggle 3 bits of metal on the camera, there we are, one piece of text engraved. There you are, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, and good night.